Etterati, this is your tribe calling.
Before we get to today's episode, we need your help.
Thanks to you, we have climbed the charts. You have listened, you have reviewed, you've shared, you've given tip-offs, and for that we are thankful.
We are a stubbornly independent media company that critiques and analyses the media and says stuff that maybe others won't or don't, and also provides much needed media literacy. We would like to stay independent.
So if you've ever felt voiceless or powerless, or that the news is something that is done to you, not for you, join us as we flip the script and help audiences read the news right.
There's never been less trust in media, and we get it. We've been let down by the media too. But critical thinking is so important in this time and so necessary for our democracy.
So head on over to ettemedia.com, become a paid subscriber and join our media literacy movement. You've got our back, we've got yours.
No fear, no favour. Actually, that's not true. I'm scared all the time. But I do it anyway, which is all the more reason to support. See you over at ettemedia.com. Hello and welcome to this episode of We Used to Be Journos, the podcast where two media insiders break down broken news. I am one of those media insiders. My name is Jan Fran, and with me is my co-host, another media insider, Antoinette Latouf. And we are simply thrilled, Antoinette, are we not, to have a growing team of people that we have very affectionately labelled the Etterati bumping into us at certain protests and telling us how much they love the podcast.
At protests, at the supermarket, everywhere that I go. And it just makes me think, like, are you really listening? Are all those people really listening? Like, it's wild if they are. And it would suggest that maybe we are creeping back to spot number one and getting rid of the rest is politics.
I mean, when you say are all those people listening, look, we've been approached about 10 times.
No.
So it's 10 people might be listening to the podcast. That's true.
Or messaging, like messaging that they're listening. But there is one particular listener who sent a message and said that in a bid to get us back in number one spot and bump the rest is politics, she's going to stop listening to the rest is politics. And I'm like, no, you don't have to do that unless you really want to.
I mean, you should do that.
We are thankful, and please do it. And also tell all your friends to do it.
We didn't really think of that as a promotional thing, did we?
No.
It's like, not only listen to us, but stop listening to everyone else, please. We would never say such a thing. I also just want to give a shout out to listener Pauline/Paulette. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure she's going to change her name by deed poll now that she's a member of the Etterati. So Pauline was listening to last week's episode and did come up with a suggestion. And she said, love the ep, obviously, all of that. Thank you, Pauline. But she said, can you include some info on where it is that we might be able to donate? Because Pauline, like everybody else, is feeling, utter just helplessness and dismay. And we don't like those feelings. We like to feel like we're doing something.
Yeah.
And so she was just like, where can I put my money?
Yeah.
Which is a really good question. And it's a question that I get asked all the time.
Same.
And look, I'm not an expert on where you can put your money, but I do know that the major organisations like Plan, I'm an ambassador for Plan. I know that they work with the Egyptian Red Crescent, for example. I know that they have a Plan office in Jordan, so they're well established within the region. Mm-hmm. If you give your money to Plan, they reroute through those organisations and also have partner organisations on the ground in Gaza. So Plan, look, I'm not going to be, protectionist. You can donate to UNICEF. You can donate to Médecins Sans Frontières. They're a great organisation too.
Amnesty International is where I donate.
Amnesty International does a lot of good advocacy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I think any of the big organisations have the machinery and the machinations to at least be able to attempt to get, food and aid and much needed medical supplies into Gaza.
And I'm going to suggest something closer to home. For those of you who aren't familiar with pianist Jason Gillam, he's currently before the courts because he's suing the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. So he did a performance and then he dedicated, he got up and he said some words acknowledging the slain Palestinian journalists. And then his event was cancelled. Anyway, as somebody who obviously has been through the court system, I could not have done it without public support and people funding helping fund through GoFundMe. Jason has a similar, we can put it in the show notes. That's a very local way that you can help because artists and thinkers, and as we always talk about, should be able to to show empathy and bring attention to what is happening. So yeah, I'm going to suggest Jason Gillam.
Actually, that's a really good point. I don't think people think like donations, they always think, the people...
Food and clothes and all those things, medical equipment, which is important, of course.
Yeah, but there are a bunch of other things going on, repercussions here locally. So yes, we will absolutely put all of those in the show notes, and I am going to be very cheeky in this moment and say that if you do have any spare money just hanging around, and you really feel like you want to put it somewhere that might be useful, please do consider putting it with independent media, in particular Ette Media.
Yes,
and you can
in particular and exclusively.
In particular, you know how we told you to listen to us and to stop listening to everyone else? Yeah, do that. Stop giving money to everyone else and only give it to us.
Yes.
Etmedia.com is where you can subscribe to the podcast and help us keep making it. All right. What is in the show this week, Antoinette?
Well, we were both, Jan, at that historic Harbour Bridge march. There's so much to say about it. That's going to be the entire second half of the episode. We're going to look at the media coverage and the framing of the protests, but also in the lead up to the protest. We're also going to reveal the lengths one outlet in particular went to prohibit the word genocide from being used in a story, despite the journalists pushing and despite their best efforts. It's infuriating, but it is still happening. There's also Stella Magazine's cover, which, let's be frank, it made us throw up in our mouth. So we're going to break down why.
I mean, clearly that is a no from me.
That is a no.
That's happening in our
It's a
no from me segment.
That is a reflux reaction. And then the Logies get a thumbs down, and it's our no from me. And I'll explain why. Not all of it, just most of it. But we are mixing things up. And we are going to start with it's a yes from me. And that's largely to force Jan to find something good to comment on. And Jan, no pressure. And by that, I mean a lot of pressure.
I've lived up to expectations. How about that? So this is a podcast that I stumbled on it's a Guardian podcast, and it is within the Full Story feed of the Guardian. So the Full Story is the Guardian sort of
daily news.
Yeah, kind of daily news podcast. But they've actually got a special 2-episode podcast called The Descendants, that if you head to the Full Story, you'll be able to find it in that feed. Now, this podcast it's essentially about a massacre of Aboriginal people that took place in the mid-1800s. What I found particularly interesting about this podcast was the way that they discovered that a lot of these killings took place. So the two journalists here, and in the first episode, it's Sarah Collard and Lorena Allam. They find a diary of pastoralist, I guess you can call him, called Major Logue, who lived in Western Australia in the mid-1800s. And he wrote this diary over many, many years and decades, right? But there were specific bits of the diary that were written in code.
Oh.
And these two journalists, along with some historians, worked out that...
they cracked the code?
They cracked the code.
Oh.
Yes. So the code was a code called Pigpen Masonic Code, right? They managed to crack the code, and what they worked out was written in this code was specific details of Aboriginal people that had been killed. And so they trace the descendants of those, they track the descendants of those that had been killed. They go out and find them and they speak to them. But not only that, they find the descendants of Major Logue, who, kind of want this story out in the open and want to try and, make amends for what their ancestors did. I think what this podcast does is it brings something that is kind of abstract and historical very much into the present and into something very tangible. So what have you got?
I've recently signed up to the True North newsletter, and it's curated by Denise Shrivel. She's a comms professional who's now turned into an Australian commentator, political campaigner and podcaster. So what it is, it's a news update that you get every weekday afternoon, and she curates articles, podcasts and cartoons, but they're exclusively from Australia's independent news sector. So it includes First Nations media, includes places like The Shot, us as well, some outlets or podcasts I haven't actually heard of. Some I kind of vaguely know, but she curates like interesting articles or episodes to check out. And she does this voluntarily. because she's a mover and a shaker, and she wants Australians to get behind, good journalism, good independent journalism. So I'm like, oh, I love it. And I click every afternoon and I have a look. Obviously I don't read everything, but I browse through and I'm like, oh, that cartoon catches my interest. Oh, I'm going to read that.
How might one subscribe to this?
True North. You just go to Substack, True North. It's free. She does it voluntarily because she has a big heart and she's a legend.
All right. Head on over there, stick your email in and subscribe. Again, if you need more info, it's all in the show notes. That is yes from me. Good on us. We're real heroes today.
We are, but let's go to the part we enjoy. We really enjoy. We live for this. Let's be honest.
Not that I don't enjoy complimenting people, because I do, but I very much enjoy deriding people more.
Love it.
So my no from me this week is Stella magazine putting Erin Molan on the cover in the year of our Lord 2025.
Yeah.
And also just the, I guess, hilarity, would you call it? The great irony, the confusion.
The caucasity. I don't know what it is. Caucasity. So many things. So many alarm bells. We need a pot. We need the alarm bell. We need them all.
There was something poetic about that cover coming out on Sunday, the 3rd of August, just as hundreds of thousands of people gathered on the Sydney Harbour Bridge in, I guess, maybe one of the biggest anti-war protests we've ever had.
Yeah.
And Stella magazine, existing apparently in an absolute parallel reality, just putting Erin Molan on its cover.
Yeah, before we get into why that placement is problematic, a little bit about Stella magazine, for those who may not be familiar with it. It is the glossy little magazine pullout that comes with the Murdoch stable of Sunday papers. So it focuses on celebrity news. It's very Australian, and for ages, I think it's tried to separate itself from that kind of Murdoch brand. They're a little bit more feminist or a little bit more forward thinking. But for me, this placement in this time with this woman really just said to me, this is Rupert Murdoch in a tailored blouse with some soft lighting, and it's gross.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and I'm like, and it is fucking gross.
Yeah. Sometimes you're like, oh, maybe this magazine is palatable. And then you have those moments where you're like, no, it is not. Yes, apparently it bills itself as Australia's most read Sunday magazine, which, to be fair, I'm not sure how many magazines are specifically Sunday magazines, but sure. Anyway, Erin Molan's on the cover this week, and she is a pro-Israel firebrand. Not my language. That is the language that a Times of Israel article used when they wrote about her. She's very, very popular in Israel.
Yeah, and she's collecting awards. She's doing speaking tours. She's doing all the things after Israel has been credibly accused of committing genocide and their leader is a wanted war criminal.
All of that.
All of the things.
All of that.
She decided that was a good a war crime Kentucky tour to go on.
All of the above.
Yeah.
And I guess my gripe is, like, you do you, babe. However, if you are Stella magazine and you are going to have Erin Molan on the cover, maybe ask her. Maybe ask her a little bit about, her support of a country that has been credibly accused of committing genocide. Just shoot her one question,
Yeah.
And did they shoot her one question about Gaza? No. There wasn't. But there was, however, a question about her time in Tel Aviv and how afraid she must have been having to run into bunkers in Tel Aviv when Iran began attacking Israel, or when Israel began attacking Iran. Who knows which came first?
Yeah. Israel, in this case, attacked first.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So there was just, the only bit that really spoke about the issue of our time
was about her feelings.
Was about her feelings.
In a safe place.
And about how scared she felt in the bunker. Which, would I have expected more from Stella magazine? I don't know.
Well, look,
maybe a tiny bit.
We've both been in Stella
That's
magazine.
true.
I think it's important to put that out.
That's true. Someone's going to do a Google and they're going to be like, hey, wait a minute.
But for me, it was 2022 and I was in it, like inside it, when I was on a book tour.
For a magazine that bills itself about women and the audience of women, even though I'm not sure who the audience is for this magazine, but nonetheless, it is about women and for women. There was one tweet that Erin made, I think in like February this year, where she was sort of sharing her thoughts on social media, and then she said something like, "It's time, destroy them." right?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
No, I do remember it because I remember commenting on it.
Oh,
yeah.
It's time, destroy them. This is in February 2025. When we know that 70% of the people that Israel is killing are women and children. We had seen so much horror, like just unprecedented horror. The killing of aid workers. Zomi Frankham had been killed. Hind Rajab in the car. I mean, we've talked about this so many times. The medics that were massacred. Although I don't actually know the date for that one.
No, the medics came later. But there were so many examples of the most atrocious war crimes, receipt after receipt after receipt after receipt. And every human rights organisation coming out saying that women and children are 70% of the casualties.
Are bearing the brunt here. And so to tweet something like
destroy them,
knowing full well actually what that really entails, I found quite nauseating.
It's beyond horrific.
I would have expected, at the very least, for a magazine that purports to be about women, for women, by women, to at least ask the question of when you say things like that, you know that the impact is on Palestinian women and children, right? Yeah. Like, what is your response? Nothing. Yeah. Crickets.
Whatever deal she has with the speaking tours or the award recipients or the Israeli media outlet that she was doing some work for, they're certainly getting bang for their buck. I don't know how big that buck is, but they're certainly getting bang for their buck because she is repeating and amplifying every sort of horrific falsity that they're putting out, the ones that have been categorically debunked by any organisation with an ounce of credibility. But hey, still a magazine. Have a few outfit changes and put her on your cover. Like it's
a no from me.
It is. Yeah, it's a no from me.
What's your no?
Well, mine was a 65th Logies, and it does go for 3.5 hours. And I did watch most of it. But I did fast forward bits because obviously I want the focus to be on journalism. And there are a few categories pertaining to journalism. Sam Pang, he did what few could. He walked into the room and ripped it so badly. Like, I cannot tell you. Even at one point, I was even uncomfortable with how many jokes he made about how white the room was. Okay. And that he and Chef Po were related, and something about having a bloodline back to the Ming, he's like, oh, me and Po, we go way back to the Ming dynasty. Anyway, so I enjoy Sam Pang. I usually do. There is a new category that I'm going to get to in a minute, but there was a Ray Martin Award for Most Popular News or Public Affairs Presenter. And it all felt very same. And no, I'm not suggesting that everybody looks the same. However, the nominations, I want to talk about this year's nominations. Ali Langdon, David Spears, Michael Usher, Peter Overton, Sarah Ferguson, Tara Brown. The winner was Ali Langdon. Last year's nominations, Ali Langdon, David Spears, Michael Usher, Peter Overton, Sarah Ferguson, Liz Hayes. No, I'm not suggesting like all white people look the same, but these are all the same people, bar one.
And who won last year?
Ali Langdon.
So hang on. This year and last year were exactly the same, except for one of the blonde ladies with a bob on 60 Minutes was replaced with another blonde lady with a bob from 60 Minutes.
They swapped him out. But Ray Martin came to intro the award that's been named after him. And he's a legend, and he's 80, and he's hosted and done, all the things, and he's got all the achievements under his belt. I just thought, come on, Ray, I'm keen to hear what you have to say. This is Ray.
As serious, I think I've never seen Australia, or never seen the craft of journalism under such a siege as we are at the moment, with journalists being beaten up and put in jail and killed around the world, and with the stupidity of fake news. So to actually have the magazine recognise news and current affairs, I'm honoured.
Okay, so this was Sunday night.
Sure.
Sunday night after the historic...
Again, so many things happened on Sunday.
So many things happened on Sunday. And he's talking, this is the closest we got to journalism's been under attack. And David Spears on the red carpet, the host of ABC Insiders, was always like, journalism has never been more important before. Pray tell, buddy, why? Why, Ray Martin, when you have the stage and the microphone and nothing to lose at 80, you talk in vague generalities?
I see. Beaten up and put in jail and killed around the world. Killed where?
Killed how?
Exactly. I have to say that I did get quite a bit of whiplash this weekend in my feed because it was just protest, Logies, starving children, genocide.
Yeah.
And that's just what it was on infinite scroll. And it was just one of those weekends that really highlighted the parallel reality. Like most days I feel like, what universe do I live in today? And that just felt really, really heightened at the weekend. And look, Sonia Kruger was nominated for the Gold Logie once again. Which, also does highlight a bit of a...
And she's won it before and she's been nominated most years, as I understand.
Yeah, she's
right?
won it. I think she won it in 23, I want to say. Not last year, but maybe the year before. But
Yeah.
also was nominated the year before, and yada, yada.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, every time, she gets nominated, there's always kind of commentary about comments that she made in 2016 about wanting to ban Muslims from coming to Australia, which, what the fuck? Number one. Okay, she made those comments, yes, and I always...
But some people grow and change and learn, don't they, Jan?
Well, some people. I'm not sure that necessarily Sonia Kruger has grown and learnt and changed. I'm not sure what her opinion on Muslim immigration is.
Because we haven't heard anything about it.
I don't think so. I don't think she's
I haven't.
publicly reckoned with the comments.
No.
I certainly don't think she's apologised, unless I'm wrong. I'm happy to be very, very happy, actually, to be wrong on this one. But the only reason that I'm bringing it up this time is because every time Sonia Kruger gets nominated for a gold, I just go back and listen to the comments. I just have a quick squeeze.
Just for fun, just in your pastime.
Just because I'm always like, are they as bad as what I remember? And then I listen to them and I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually worse.
No, they're quite shocking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's good to know. Anyway, I'm not going to rehash the comments. I mean, you can look them up. It was basically that we should ban all Muslims from coming to Australia because Sonia Kruger is very scared of Muslim terrorism and what might happen here in Australia. However, one interesting thing that I found was that next day after she made those comments, because there was huge backlash because obviously there would be, she actually gave a justification of why.
Was there huge backlash? I'm pretty sure she was given 4 more shows to host on Channel 7. But maybe in our circles there were backlash.
Yes, there was a huge backlash and then
Some
several
promotions.
Logies.
And some promotions.
And lots of promotions, indeed. And we can only speculate a pay rise. So there was all that. But I do believe some backlash.
Okay.
But so the day after she made those comments, she then justified, why she made those comments. And just to put it in context, those comments were made after a terrorist attack in Nice, France. And I thought her justification felt very telling. It was quite revelatory and enlightening. So let's just have a bit of a listen.
And last week's attack on innocent men, women and children in Nice left me in utter disbelief. I saw the image of a baby covered in a plastic sheet with a doll lying beside her, and it rocked me to the very core. I imagined what that must have been like for the people of Nice, for the friends and families of the lost, and the thought that it could happen here terrifies me.
Okay, Sonia Kruger getting very emotional there about a terrorist attack that happened in Nice, as you should.
And it was, I remember that.
It was
Those
horrific.
images were haunting. It was terrible.
I mean, she's talking about babies covered in sheets, which again, and maybe this is just my brain, but I have not seen more babies covered in sheets
in my life, ever.
Ever.
We are going to have to be working through that vicarious trauma of all of that imagery that we
Ever.
have seen. I don't think the world has seen
No.
that many.
But yet I've not heard Sonia Kruger say anything publicly about the babies covered in sheets. And I certainly haven't heard her call for a ban on Israelis coming into Australia
We even
or
have-
IDF or Jewish people, which would be outrageous.
Well, we do have IDF soldiers coming to Australia. Yes, just not saying anything about that.
Didn't say a single thing. But yet seeing babies in sheets 10 years ago rocked her to her core that she had to go on national television and say that she read an article by Andrew Bolt that she agreed with, that indeed we should probably ban Muslims from coming to Australia. Fast forward to now, never seen more babies covered in sheets, hasn't said a single thing, hasn't called for a ban of anyone. Curious. Nominated for a Logie, though.
She won something. She won another category. I don't know what it was. I was fast forwarding.
Maybe I'm cooked. Am I cooked?
No, you're not cooked.
I'm not cooked?
You are not cooked.
I feel cooked.
It is a no from me too.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to the Logies. The Logies are weird and fun-ish, I guess.
Yeah, like there's nothing wrong like with going and getting dressed up and, hanging out with your industry peers. Cool.
It would just feel like you're just walking into a weird parallel universe, just a complete parallel
I couldn't stop laughing because after the ad breaks, they would be like, the 65th Logie Awards in the iconic blah, blah, blah. And you would just see the Harbour Bridge in the background as the camera panned. And I was like, oh, like the protesters have just cleared. Like, it was just, it was so like, I'm like, oh man.
That's
like I haven't taken any
great.
drugs, but I feel like I'm tripping. Like it was...
Oh shit! I didn't even know that. Like, I mean, I didn't even think I knew that it was held
It was
in
in
Sydney,
Sydney.
let
They just
alone
kept doing
with
these,
the backdrop
like,
of the Harbour Bridge.
What do you call that shot that does the travel? And I was just like,
Oh God. Okay, so parallel realities. No from me. All right. Speaking of the Harbour Bridge, at the weekend we were both on the Harbour Bridge.
yeah.
On Sunday. You were actually leading the protest,
Yes.
which not that you have to run shit by me before you do it, but I had no idea that you were going to lead the protest. Was this a thing that just popped up last minute or what?
Well, no, what you did know was that I had been asked to speak at the protest. And I've been
yes.
asked to speak at many of the protests. And, like, I'm going to be frank. I don't generally go to protests for any, like, whatever the cause is. I don't like large crowds. I don't go to New Year's Eve celebrations. I don't go to Mardi Gras. I'm just not a crowds person. So that's just, I choose to exercise my civil liberties and in other ways. But I thought that this one was particularly historic. And I really mulled over and I hashed it out with you. Should I speak? Should I not speak? What kind of, undue attention is it going to bring me? But, my voice is important in this matter, but I'm a journalist, but I was like, well, no, but I can go up there and speak about all our journalist peers killed. And I really wrestled with it. I really, really wrestled with it. And I was like, umming and erring up until the very last minute. I kept going back to the organisers. And then I was like, oh, look, do you still need a speaker? And then the decision was kind of made for me because they were like, oh, actually, like, we have so many people
for too long.
and like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks have I been dilly-dallying, like, because I've been asked all the time. And they're like, we now have this incredible lineup of speakers. We can't take any more speakers, but how about we would invite you to lead the march, like to be one of the people leading the march. Okay. And so it was at the 11th hour that I decided I wasn't speaking. Well, actually, it was decided for me. And then I was like, yeah, you know what? I am going to go and stand and march.
On the point of like, you haven't been to a lot of protests. Like, okay, I understand the crowd thing as well. Like, I'm 5'2". I don't I can't see anything.
Yeah.
Is basically what I'm saying. But I feel like I've rarely gone to protests. I think maybe I've been to maybe 3.
Yeah, same in my lifetime.
In my lifetime.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason is like it's kind of not really. It's frowned upon for journalists to go to protests.
Well, certain protests, because we've seen other journalists proudly go to marriage equality protests. We've seen to violence against women protests. There are some politically palatable protests that are they get the tick of approval.
Yes, and then there are others
industry
that don't get the tick of approval.
Yeah.
And this one really felt very firmly in the latter category. And so I kind of And I think it's just something that is just like the residue of Australian journalism has like latched into a piece of my soul and refused to let go. Because I feel like I've internalized that idea of, oh, you're a journalist, you should not go to any protest ever at all. You must be neutral, you must be impartial, you can't be seen to be an activist. All of this stuff that like has unraveled,
nonsense.
just unraveled spectacularly. Not just in the last 2 years, been slowly unraveling for many years, but really accelerated in the last 2 years.
But there were so many journos and camera people who weren't working that I saw in the crowd. So many friends.
I mean, of course, because this is a matter for all people. Like the journalists are starving, the journalists are dying, the journalists are being sniped and killed and, slaughtered. Their families are being slaughtered. So it becomes an issue for everybody. But I was still a bit reticent. You know what I mean? Like I still just had that, just a slight qualm about it. And I think I'll always have that.
Oh, I had that in the front row because I saw all the cameras on me and I thought to myself, oh, here we go. I can't, what if I frown? What if I this? What if I chant the wrong thing? What if I, you know what I mean?
What if you look too happy and they think, oh, you're having too much of a good
what
time.
If one person does something like despite the fact that it's a crowd of in excess of 100,000 people, it's going to be pinged on me. Like I was very acutely aware of all, but beyond that, I just thought this moment is too important to worry about. Is someone going to take a photo of me laughing? Because someone or whatever.
Let's talk about the moment because I don't think we've even set it up. By now, everybody listening surely knows that on Sunday, the 3rd of August, I mean, estimates differ here. The organisers say up to 300. The cops say 100,000. Can we sit at about 200,000?
Yeah,
does that seem reasonable?
That seems.
Hundreds of thousands. Of
in the
people.
freezing rain.
It was cold. It was wet. That would have certainly deterred some people. I mean, if the sun had been out, God knows how many people would have showed up.
Imagine.
The organisers themselves were stunned. I don't think anybody expected this amount of people to be on the bridge. So it was an incredible show.
It was. It also just it reaffirmed the power of the press to shift the needle. Like in the lead up to that, the front pages and all the bulletins were acknowledging the absolute barbarity and evil inflicted on children and civilians who were being starved. And that I think really galvanised the masses, it was heartening to see the masses galvanised. And actually when I got out of Wynyard Station, I could barely move. I was overcome by emotion. And I don't cry very much because I was just like, oh my God, look at everybody. And it just made me think, well, imagine we'd covered this adequately from the beginning.
The reporting on this has been, look, there's a spectrum of reporting, shall we say.
Yeah.
There's been some that is good and some that is bad and some that is really very bad, and some that is actually quite accurate and commendable. So we're going to unpack that. We're going to unpack the reporting of the protest, but also some of the reporting that led to the protest as well. And if I may start at the very bottom, why not? Do you want the bad news or the worst news?
Yeah, go with the worst.
All right. Well, I'm gonna give 0 stars to the West Australian over in WA. There, Monday's headline was, and let me give you the picture. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'll have it up on our
screen.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. But for those listening, let me just give you an indication of the picture. There was a woman, an older woman wearing a hijab, and she was holding a doll, and the doll was kind of wrapped in a blanket, and the blanket looked like it had blood on it. So it was this bloody doll. And the headline was, big bold letters, bloody chaos. So one, not true.
Yeah, we were there. It was not chaotic. It was ridiculously
no blood,
calm and
no
cohesive.
chaos. Yeah, 2 of those things didn't actually happen on Sunday. But thank you, the West Australian. I remember seeing that woman. And the reason why I remember seeing that woman is because I remember the doll.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it. It was so visceral, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do, which is to remind you of actually what it represents, which is the horror that we've been seeing come out of Gaza for the last 2 years. But the West Australian seemed much more perturbed by
a sad-faced looking woman with a hijab holding a bloody baby, and
the bloodied babies themselves. So if you're angrier about that than the horror it's meant to represent, you're fucking cooked, babe. You're cooked.
And this woman goes every week to protest. Some of the protest organisers have come out and said they see her every week. So this woman's been going to protest over 95 weeks.
How do you know?
That's what the protesters say. We see her every week. They know who she is.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Fucking hell. And she's ended up on the cover of the West Australian.
And you juxtapose that with Irene, the innocent white woman in the pretty white red carpet dress. Again, no shade on Irene. Congratulations, Irene.
Again, Lynn McGregor. But yes, we haven't told you. But on the other half of the cover of the West Australian
beautiful gown.
is Lynn McGregor in her beautiful gown. Yeah.
Yeah. But also when I was there, Jan, I saw, images of I saw scenes of a boy, maybe he was 10 or 12, and he was holding an elderly lady's arm as he was helping her walk. Right in front of me, at the front of the march, were these two gorgeous little kids, maybe 5 or 6. They were playing the Arabic drums and the girl was leading chants. There were so many beautiful intergenerational photo opportunities of what the march, they would have had to really be scraping and really dig. They must be sitting around going, how can we spin this historic, beautifully cohesive, march
peaceful,
for humanity,
heartwarming march, into something chaotic and bloody. Yeah. The thing is, though, just quickly on the West Australian, before we move on from it, it's the only paper in WA. Am I correct in saying this? It's the main paper there in WA?
And it's run by a man who bankrolled a war criminal and runs the 7 Network that we also know paid for hookers and cocaine for a rapist.
Sure.
So I mean, the morality checks out.
So real not great stuff there. But I had a look at the last 2 weeks of covers on the West Australian, right? Because this was a time when not just the world's media, but Australian media, they were all showing the images of starving children in Gaza. Do you think the West Australian had a single image of a starving child in Gaza? Nope.
But they're upset by a doll.
But they're upset by a doll. Come on, mate. 0 stars for the West Australian. And I think there was a lot of people that were of the same opinion, also giving it 0 stars. A lot of those people in my DMs, including one person, Ping. Hello, Ping. Ping is a real person, Pingette. She just jumped into my DMs and just said, chaos, what crap. We were marching with young neurodiverse kids and my disabled mother using a mobility scooter, and at no time were we stressed in any way. Her mother is 80 years old. She told me. And she said my mum had space and was able to stay connected with us. My kids were safe and at ease, and everyone around us was calm and respectful to each other.
And do we know if her mum goes to protests regularly?
She doesn't, because she's not very mobile, I don't think, but she insisted on going to this one. And actually Ping told me, she's like, I told her, I said, you don't have to go. Don't feel like you have to go. It's raining, man. It was pouring. And this woman is out on a mobility scooter, 80 years old, crossing the Harbour Bridge, and they want to go with bloody chaos. Cooked.
We said we were going to start with the worst, but I think this is a contender for the worst, because you give it a 0, I give this a sub-0 to the Australian. Because the headline is Bridge to Peace March Marred by Hate Signs and Hamas Horror.
Okay.
There was one particular sign that one person, so in a sea of 100,000 people, there was one sign, which is, I'm no statistician, but it's 0.00001%. And that some person was holding a sign of the Iranian leader, the Ayatollah. Right?
Okay.
That's not a crime to hold. I mean, I wouldn't hold a sign of the guy, but he was holding it. And I know because he was a couple of rows behind me, and the guy next to me turned around and said, can you take that sign down? We don't need that sign. It's just going to create unnecessary negative attention, and we don't need it.
Okay, so the Australian's article was about people holding...
One person
holding an Ayatollah sign.
Who
then got told to take it down and
he did. But I was literally there. I was next to the man who asked him to take it down, and I saw the man put it away, because we knew that don't give them anything to try and sensationalize or weaponize. But alas, in a moment.
One person did.
One person found the 0.00001% of protesters, and that's of holding a sign of a foreign leader. And then the Hamas horror, that actually referred to the second half of the article, because there was a video released of a Israeli hostage who's skeletal in Gaza. I mean, even the marrying of those two articles and the marrying of that headline, it was just they did that so they could put Hamas horror. And to suggest that the march was marred by a sign of an Iranian leader, what utter not. I would just love to be at that editorial meeting and be like, they would have to, it'd have to work.
they're digging.
They're working so hard. They've gone through thousands and thousands of signs. They've gone past all the mobility scooters, all of the family pictures, all of the, all of the cohesiveness, all of the, and just like,
And they're like, we got him. Oh, look at this.
oh,
boss.
they would have just been like jizzing all over themselves. They would have been so excited that they got something, and they were like, and let's make it Hamas's fault.
Hang on, zoom in. Oh, there it is. Oh, that looks like the Ayatollah to me. Let's whack that in our coverage. Yeah. They also had an editorial called Mindless Walk Emboldens Hamas. That was the editorial of The Australian. So just in case anyone on the bridge is wondering, the Australian thinks that you're an idiot, mindless, no mind of your own, not thinking people, but also that you're emboldening terror.
Yeah.
So, Ping, if you could just let your 80-year-old mother on her mobility scooter know that she, in fact, is emboldening terrorism. Yeah, I think she might be interested to know that. I'm not going to go into this piece because it's not worth me doing so, except to say that term emboldens Hamas. When I saw it, I was like, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Where have I heard emboldens Hamas before? And of course, Benjamin Netanyahu used it in May to accuse France, the UK, and Canada of emboldening Hamas.
Oh, for recognising Palestine as a
yeah,
state?
or for saying that they were going to take further actions in the joint letter that they wrote, which Australia signed on to. He said that was emboldening Hamas. And then last week, the US State Department said that a UN meeting about a two-state solution was... What language did they use?
Oh, no, emboldening Hamas.
Emboldening Hamas.
So the fax has gone out. Like, they've gotten the fax.
The fax has gone out and they said, I think this is the term we're going to use.
Yeah.
Okay. The Israeli Prime Minister's using it. US State Department's using it. The Oz is using it. Everyone's in tandem. Which, like, for me, my biggest criticism of the Oz is just like, really? I mean, it's so boring.
Yeah.
You're just using language that the Israeli Prime Minister and the US State Department has used before. Like, just just go thesaurus.
You know what? ChatGPT. Just find a different way to say embolden Hamas. Like, they'll give you 45 options in 3 seconds.
Yes, exactly. So this was a slightly, clearly more agenda-driven, skewed, deliberate misrepresentation of the reality. But then what was interesting to me was that then you get the reporting that was not as blatant as that, but I still think mischaracterized what happened, right? So you had the AFR's headline, the Australian Financial Review, which was catastrophic situation avoided as 90,000 people march on the Harbour Bridge.
I mean, I was there. I mean, I don't know how it felt. Where were you standing? Did you ever feel it was a catastrophe?
I never felt like it was a catastrophe. I felt a certain degree of anxiousness when there was a bit of uncertainty about what to do. To be honest, the most anxious I felt was when we got the text from the cops.
Yeah, so I almost feel that was the New South Wales police ignited a lot of that uncertainty.
That was because then I started thinking, okay, hang on a second, because we were self-correcting before that. Everyone was sort of just turning around and saying, okay, we're turning around, we're going back. And then when I got the text, I was like, hang on, is there a discrepancy here between the cops and the organisers? Is there something happening that we don't know about?
Yeah.
I just started speculating, and that's when I felt a little bit anxious, which dissipated quickly enough. Yeah. But coming back to the AFR's headline, catastrophic situation avoided. That was the opening 3 words. And of course, when you look in the article, that term, catastrophic situation, it comes from, drum roll please,
New South Wales Police. Who spent 8 of the 9 days in the lead up to the protest fighting the protest in court, where they could arguably have spent more time planning for the protesters. But hey, catastrophic, guys.
Catastrophic situation avoided. So the AFR starts with the essentially what turned out to be unfounded fears of New South Wales Police.
Yeah, so let's lead with what didn't happen.
Yeah. Big news, everyone.
Good place to start.
A thing that maybe some people thought might happen didn't in fact happen. And here is our headline. And then you had the ABC. So this is the ABC's 7 p.m. bulletin. And I just want to play you a little bit of this because I feel like it had the same vibe as the AFR article.
Okay.
Here is the opening few seconds, not to the story, the opening few seconds to the entire ABC bulletin on Sunday night.
Okay.
Tonight, fears of a crowd crush as 90,000 people descend on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, protesting the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
Oh. You go.
Ping, 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 ping. Okay, first ping. Fears of something that didn't happen.
So once again, fears. Whose fears exactly?
The cops,
unknown.
the cops who were fighting to the 11th hour. Humanitarian crisis. I love a good humanitarian crisis, like after a cyclone.
Protesting a humanitarian crisis. So let me tell you something.
Okay.
Again, as somebody who was there, in all of the conversations that I had, in all of the chants that I heard, in all of the speeches that were given,
All the signs we read.
all of the signs that we read, I don't think I saw or heard a single person mention humanitarian crisis.
I know I didn't.
People know what they were there to protest. They were protesting a genocide. They were protesting forced starvation. They were protesting apartheid. They were protesting an occupation. And it's, you know what, if you're the ABC and you don't want to use the term genocide or any of the, that's fine. But don't misattribute. Well, that's on you. You decide that. If you don't want to use those terms, fine. Don't misattribute that to protesters.
Yeah.
Because when you say that they descended on the Harbour Bridge protesting the humanitarian crisis, that's not what they were protesting.
Yeah.
At least be honest and report accurately what it was that the protesters were protesting.
Because they seem to report accurately what the cops said didn't happen. They were really accurate there. They zeroed in on those words of what didn't happen. One of the things that I did hear a lot of, both in the chants, also speaking to people and also reading the signs, was a lot of anger about media complicity in either manufacturing consent for these war crimes or at the very least not covering them adequately or not humanising Palestinians or valuing their lives. So I was like, and so that sort of opener, this kind of vague beat up and then vague, is the exact sort of thing that people were protesting about.
Yeah.
But to be fair and nuanced, et cetera, we have gone through, we've gone through the gross end, we've gone through the slightly less gross,
I guess.
like less gross, and
we're going through the spectrum. Now we're on the upper echelons.
Others did do a better job. Some did a very good job. And because I have listened to a whole bunch that evening, I listened to a whole bunch of all of the networks. I flicked through and I watched. And for me, 10 News, their lead package was excellent.
Sydney Harbour Bridge swamped by a tidal wave for humanity in what many believe was the biggest anti-war protest Australia has ever seen. And what a stage. For the first time, the world-famous coat hanger turned into an authorised anti-war protest deck. In a highly rare move, the bridge was closed to traffic just before lunch to allow massive crowds to march for peace in Gaza, after pro-Palestine organisers yesterday won Supreme Court backing to have their say. How does it feel walking onto the Harbour Bridge?
This is incredible, and the point is to do it with 100,000 people trying to stop a genocide. That's what we need to do. We said we need people power.
And there we go. People power, historic, largest march, marching for humanity, anti-genocide.
Yep. Now compare that with bloody chaos.
And look, there is this caveat, because I think it is really dependent on the journalist or on the supervising producer or the editor who has to approve scripts or stories. Because also on Channel 10 the night before, I was watching the intro by Chris Barth, and it was like, there are fears the protest would be violent. And I was like, fears based on what? Because there have been protests for 95 weeks almost entirely without incident, to the point that there's more biffo at your community soccer game between parents of a weekend than there has been at these protests. So I was like, that's 24 hours difference.
You bloody had to do it, didn't you?
Had to do what?
You bloody had to bring up the report 24 hours before. We were on a high note, Antoinette.
We were, and shout out to the reporter Ali Donaldson, who I think did a really great job. And only because I also do know another journalist from a leading broadcast outlet was having biffo with their seniors at the outlet, who refused to let them say the word genocide in their story. And so
how did they want to use it? What was like?
They wanted to talk about what people were protesting.
Right.
and attribute it to what they were protesting and refuse to allow them in it. And this particular journalist said that other days they don't get blocked, depending on who it is in that chair. And so that just made me think, if this person is having so much difficulty, and they tried and they tried and they tried, because they are there on the ground, they are with the people, they are witnessing it, they are... and then it just made me think of that 24-hour difference at Network 10. And I think, sometimes it really boils down to the fight of the journalist and who it is that they have to convince, because we know that there are very good journalists wanting to do good jobs, but we know that there's a lot of pressure to sanitize the language or to not make Israel look culpable of its action, or responsible for its actions.
Channel 9 did I would say, not a bad job either, which is a glowing endorsement from you. Not a bad job, is glowing endorsement from you. That is huge. I don't give the praise. That means 5 stars.
So this was the live cross after the lead package. The bridge had just cleared, and the reporter was asked what it felt like to be there.
Well, Georgie, it felt special and significant. The sheer amount of people, we were all blown away as far as the eye can see, covering the Harbour Bridge. And of course, that did bring with it at times communication breakdowns. I do have to give it to the crowd. They remained patient and they remained calm, and they managed to self-regulate the situation. Georgie, no arrests and no injuries. Police will take that as a win, and protesters, of course, making their mark on the Harbour Bridge. Looking back today at such a diverse and beautiful crowd, they too will be very, very happy.
Thank you, whoever that person was. Who's the reporter?
That
What's his
person
name?
was James Wilson.
Well, James
I think he
Wilson.
captured the sentiment. There was a little bit of confusion because the cop sent a text message.
Yes.
But the fact that a crowd that large could course correct
without
incident,
that's what I was saying earlier.
it's just a course correction.
That we were self-regulating.
Yeah.
I sort of essentially just used that language as well. So for him to see that, I'm like, yes, that's exactly what happened.
So this is 9 and 10 outshining our public broadcaster in this particular, because we sat and watched all of the different networks. It shouldn't be that hard to just relay what happened without resorting to vague language or to a worst case scenario. That never happened.
Yes. But, like the pendulum swings this way, it must always at some point swing back, mustn't it? Because speaking of Channel 9,
we can never. We're like here, pat on the back, and now we're going to give you a knee to the guts.
Well, this was you see, you did it before, and now I'm doing it. God damn it! We were on a high note. Now we're whatever. It's the gamut of emotions. But a few days prior to the protest, A Current Affair had
Yes.
Ali Langdon, winner of Best Presenter. What was it? Best Public Affairs Presenter.
2 years in a row.
2 years running at the Logies.
Yeah.
Yes, they had an intro to a story about protests. This was a few days before the march. Let's have a listen to that intro.
We've seen throughout history how a peaceful protest can have a huge impact. Think Martin Luther King's March on Washington or Gandhi's Salt March. But gone are those days.
Gone are those days, because that was 1930.
Yeah, that was 100 years ago. Those days are gone. Yeah.
Yep, went no longer in that time. That was almost 2 centuries back. But go on, Ali.
Now activists are choosing chaos. Some believing mass disruptions, like bringing cities to a standstill, is the only way.
Oh yeah, the sinister music, the imagery of angry people in black.
You need disruption, you need sacrifice, and you need escalation.
Here's the opening line.
Chaos in our cities.
Oh, chaos. Sounds like
Chaos in our cities.
Sounds like the cops are having cut through. I actually think because of the demonisation of, is this protest going to go ahead? Is it going to be illegal? Rah, rah, rah. That actually galvanised more people to protest. I actually think more people turned up because they were there was this big hoo-ha. It was like, oh, we can't close the bridge. It's like, yeah, buddy, but you close it for marathon runners. So we can close the bridge. Yeah. We do close the bridge. We closed it for Ryan Gosling to shoot a film, a rom-com. So we do close the bridge.
Did we?
Yes, we did. And I watched the movie and it was great.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, what Ali was saying was some believe a mass disruptions, bringing cities to a standstill, is the only way. And it's I really hate to break this news to you, Ali, but I think it might be the only
It
way.
could be,
because heaven help us, nothing else has worked.
Yeah.
Not letter writing, not
People are
posting about it on social media, not any of those things. So what happens when the people protest and raise their voices and nothing changes? Like maybe taking to the streets is the only way.
Yeah.
You know, but clearly the way that it was framed there by A Current Affair was very demonising to protesters who are choosing chaos, which again, factually incorrect, given that there's been 95 plus weeks of protest, the vast majority of which have been very peaceful. So actually, I would say the protesters are not choosing chaos at all.
And I think that was like, that's a real opportunity. And I'm not going to play this, but there was an interview that Carl did on the Today Show with one of the protest organisers. And I know I have raised Carl before as with It's a No From Me, when he just lets politicians or people with power say the most ludicrous, factually inaccurate things and either backs them or lets them fly. But he was being so particular in pushing back against this protest about, are you going to protest? But if it's illegal and if the court says that, but like, will you close the bridge? And what about the legality of the illegal protest? Blah, blah, blah. It just went on and on and on. And it was so granular and he cut her off. And I was like, oh, wow. So like, forensic journalism and interviewing is alive and possible, but in this case, it seems to be only applied to a young woman in her 20s who's trying to organise a protest. I would much rather you do that to, say, New South Wales Police or the state government, because we have some of the most draconian anti-protest laws in the country. In fact, in the world, there was a global study that found that protesters are 3 times more likely to be arrested at a protest than the global average. So we are over-policing this civil liberty. And I'm like, why isn't that interrogated with the same rigour,
Look,
Mr. Stefanovic?
To be fair...
If you must.
Oh, no.
Whatever. Be fair.
Well, I think you'll find that neither of us have watched every single episode of The Today Show in the last 2 years. It's entirely possible that old mate Carl did take some politicians to task about some things. Possible. I don't know. I haven't been fully across it. But given our comparison, because we had him on the show a few weeks ago,
Yes.
where he let old mate Bridget Archer say whatever she wants and now was very forensic in this instance, I understand your gripe.
I just think, a journalist's role and the media's role is to interrogate power, to hold the powerful to account. And, we don't need to be rehashing police lines. We don't need to, freaking the police media unit has often, more journalists, more PR people than journalists in newsroom on a weekend. And so we've got to be a bit careful of that.
Yes. I mean, I think one important place to maybe bring this discussion to a close is because everybody knows that this went through the courts. The New South Wales Police said, I don't know the exact steps, but the organiser said we want to hold a protest on the bridge. They got taken to court, and then the judgment was handed down by Her Honour Justice Belinda Rigg. And I think it's worth reading out a certain sections of that judgment.
Yeah, so Justice Rigg said she rejected the police submission and that, and the submission was essentially that if the court does not make the order sought, which is stop the protest, it is condoning scenes of violence and ambulances not getting to hospitals in time. So the judge rejected that. But also the judge noted that the police didn't challenge the protest's evidence, that the protests have always occurred in a welcoming, inclusive, and family-friendly environment, and that between October 23 and July 25, there have been 85 successful protests with little incident. So given they are the facts...
And there they are, read out by a judge.
Why the hysteria by A Current Affair? Why the granular interrogation by Carl Stefanovic? What we should be doing is probably turning to police and being like, well,
plan shit better, babes.
Plan shit better, and maybe don't spend the entire time in court trying to stop a legitimate protest.
Apparently the police were doing some very interesting planning and very interesting pointing of fingers at screens. And I saw this actually on ABC Sydney's Instagram page.
Okay.
A very quick random story, because I'm on the train home after the protest, right? And I'm with my husband and we're just scrolling through the internet to see how the protest has been reported, and ABC, and then these images just pop up in my feed of just like police sitting in a room, like pointing at a screen. And I realized it's from ABC Sydney, and they've basically just taken like, you know, these PR images that the police have released and just put them on their social media.
So they're just doing their job.
Yeah. So it's just like, and my husband's sitting next to me and he was just like, hang on a second, why does ABC have images of like man does job? I thought,
Yeah.
that's a very good question. I guess you would expect that from like the New South Wales Police PR team, but it was a good level of copaganda there by ABC Sydney.
And just very quickly, that copaganda I think needs unpacking, particularly in Melbourne. I know that image was from Sydney, but the Melbourne police were in like riot gear with shields, barricading, and there's a little snippet from a television news report where an 80-something-year-old man is going up to them going, you know, you should be ashamed of yourself, like put your batons down. And I'm like, well, I feel like this enormous disconnect. Do you want to play it? Should we play it?
Let's play it.
Because I was just like, the Jacks, you know, because to be fair, the cops on the bridge were chill. They were just plain uniform. They were just walking alongside us. It didn't feel like a them and us, even though maybe because...
they were chill.
They were chill.
That was my experience as well.
They were chill. I mean, they fought to the last minute to try and have it shut down.
But
on the day, they were
bridge.
chill.
Yep. But in the good state of Victoria...
Oh, my gosh.
Against a wall of black helmets and steel, one man well into his 80s stood where even the young hesitated.
Put the baton away. Respect your elders and put the baton away.
So there were those scenes at Melbourne, and the worst thing that happened in Melbourne for that riot police was currently Victoria Police are investigating and trying to follow someone who threw an egg, trying to find someone who threw an egg at somebody. I contacted Victoria Police to ask what happened. They were like, you know, somebody after the protest had dispersed, somebody burnt a flag where they highlighted that it is not illegal to burn the Australian flag. I mean, would I spend my Sundays doing that? No. But that they were still hunting for somebody who threw an egg.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't get too much into the coverage of the protests in Victoria. We really did want to, but it was just an historic day in Sydney, and there was so much reporting about.
And there was so much chaos averted.
There was so much bloody chaos in Sydney that we simply had to get through it. Let me tell you, to finish on a high note, what I am very, very buoyed by, and that is the fact that yes, we have just gone through the reporting on the protest and shown a lot of it to be just very agenda-driven, skewed, and not representative of the reality at all. We're not the only people who are seeing this. We're not the only people, because actually a lot of this stuff was brought to our attention by so many people who sent us a flurry of DMs with all of the bad coverage. So people are cottoning on, and I think people are ready. Their antennas are out. You know, so they're not being sort of surprised by this stuff. It's almost like they're prepared for it, and they're understanding the way that it's been framed and some of the bullshit around it, whether they were on the bridge that day or not. So, you know, we're feeling very buoyed about that. Keep it up.
That is it. That is all we have time for this week, but we can't keep going without your support. So head to Ette Media. We are a small and mighty team. You can subscribe. Click with your dollars, help us grow, but also make sure that you review, give 5 stars. We've got to get that #1 spot. We've got to get that. I'm determined to do whatever it takes.
Stop listening to the rest is politics.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
Okay, love you. See you next week.
Bye.